All right, good afternoon, everybody. Again, this is Phil Grigsby here with the Weather Office in Slidell, and we'll go ahead and dive into our 2 o'clock briefing for today. Whoops. So the main message is over the next couple of days here through Saturday, we do have some higher rain chances in place as we have this kind of little tropical wave moving through the area. Fortunately, that's not going to develop into anything. It's just going to be a rainmaker for us. And the main concern really is going to be some localized street flooding. We may get a few wind gusts out of it today as well, although as moving into tomorrow and Saturday, the wind threat looks like it'll diminish. But the wind threat should be below severe limits. Maybe some wind gusts up around 40 miles an hour at times, but nothing that's going to cause any huge concerns. The bigger issue once the rain comes to an end after Saturday is that we get the heat to return back to the area early next week. And it really looks like Monday through Wednesday have some pretty decent probabilities of seeing our heat index values once again peaking between 110 and 115 degrees each day. So that's going to be a concern. Some cooling shelters and things like that will likely need to be opened again. And then fortunately, the heat looks like it'll break again. We're kind of in this persistent pattern. Each week is the same, where we're going to have another, it looks like another little tropical wave try to move in late next week. And so our rain chances increase on Thursday. The street flooding threat increases, but our heat will finally break. So here's just the quick 7-day threat outlook. So as far as the heavy rain threat, it is limited. It's going to be very localized street flooding concerns today, tomorrow, and Saturday. And we also have that limited lightning threat, kind of typical with any thunderstorm activity that you do see. The heat threat, it is elevated for the next several days, but it's just kind of our typical heat that we see in the summer months here. The more at-risk populations are going to be the ones that have the higher heat concerns. But the general population, well, if they just take their precautions, they should be okay. However, as we get into Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, it does go up to more of a significant threat. And I'll address that here in a little bit later. But like I said before, the heat index values do get back up into those dangerous levels, where it's going to impact a larger portion of the population. Quick overview of the tropical weather outlook. The good news is it's still just a 10% or very low development chance over the next 7 days. And honestly, the system should be moving inland by Saturday, so the threat should be over with after that. As I mentioned before, other than the localized flooding threat, there's no other impacts expected from the system. It's just that localized street flooding concern that we could see over the next couple of days. Speaking of the flood threat, this is the excessive rainfall outlook for today itself. So you can see there's a marginal risk across the entire area, all of southeast Louisiana and southern Mississippi. The peak timing really today is going to be through the early evening hours. As we get into the late evening, the rain threat really diminishes. We lose our daytime heating, we lose all the instability, all the support for thunderstorms, and so that localized flooding threat will end. And the biggest issue is that if we do have, we have high rainfall rates of 1 to 2 inches an hour. If you get storms that try to train over the same area or maybe stall out, then that's when we could see some of these localized street flooding issues. And that's really going to be for our more urbanized areas, especially down around Houma, city of New Orleans, parts of the North Shore, Mississippi Gulf Coast, Baton Rouge. Those are going to be the really big areas that we'd have to keep an eye on, just because of all the concrete and other infrastructure. Not a lot of capacity if we get those rain rates like that for the drainage to keep up. Tomorrow is really rinse and repeat. It looks basically the same. You can see the marginal risk across all the same area. It's basically the same threat. And again, the peak timing is really going to be in the afternoon and early evening hours. Maybe we'll get something to fire up in the late morning, but the odds are that it's mostly going to be in the afternoon and evening. And again, by the late evening, as we lose the daytime heating, the threat really does diminish. As we move into Saturday, the threat actually starts to decrease a bit. As I said, the system, the tropical wave starts to move more into Texas, move away from the area. We just have a marginal risk basically across southeast Louisiana. It does kind of go over towards Hancock County and the Bay St. Louis area as well, but the primary concern is really going to be along and south of the I-10-12 corridor here in southeast Louisiana. And that does include all of our major urbanized areas, North Shore, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Houma. So those localized street flooding concerns are still going to be there. Again, if we get a storm that tries to park over the same location and dump those 1 to 2 inch per hour rainfall rates. And again, the same time frame, afternoon into early evening. Like I said, kind of a rinse and repeat as far as the pattern goes for the next couple of days. Now we're going to move on into the heat risk forecast. This is really going in through Monday and Wednesday. Sunday is kind of a transitional day. We may see a few areas try to approach heat advisory criteria, but honestly, it looks like it's going to be more like last Sunday was, where we have just enough pop-up shower and thunderstorm activity to kind of keep things at bay. But we really dry out. It looks like we're going to have a nice little ridge of high pressure build over us that's going to help heat things up. Tuesday right now does look like the hottest day of the week, and you can see that in the graphics here. This is the heat risk across the region. On Monday, it's in the moderate to major range for most areas. By Tuesday, it's pretty much major across the entire area, and you can see down at the bottom, I put the categories in there on what that means. Basically, when you have a major day or a red day, it affects anyone really, all the population without any proper cooling or hydration. And so that can stress the health systems and also impact some industries. Fortunately, we don't have a widespread extreme day. This isn't like the 2023 heat that we saw, where we did have multiple days of extreme heat, but still could be a concern, especially as we move into Tuesday. And then by Wednesday, we will start to see the pattern shift a little bit, a little better rain chance. So the major risk looks like it's going to be more over inland areas as opposed to the coast. But it's still a bit of a concern that day before the heat finally breaks as we get into Thursday. And again, just a quick summary. So yeah, rinse and repeat for the next few days here. High rain chances, maybe some localized street flooding concerns through Saturday, and then we'll have the heat return for early next week, Monday through Wednesday, with pretty high probability of seeing those heat index values peaking between 110 and 115 degrees each day. And then finally we get the heat to break and we have the rain return again next Thursday. So that's kind of the